I've had it. I'm angry about the I appreciate that the Department of Energy, according to the Wall Street Journal, has come around to this. And by the way, it's not just like the general department. It's this Z group that apparently is very legit, Z Division, the intel arm of the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which specializes in assessments of the nuclear and biological weapons activities of foreign states. Their work is rarely disclassified, quoting now from National Review, often heavily redacted. And this same Z Division had been studying this in June of 2021. And even back then was saying this thing about lab leak is plausible and deserves further investigation. Now we have a low confidence report from them that it came from a lab. The FBI said we have moderate confidence it came from a lab. You still got 4 other intelligence agencies saying natural origin. And we're supposed to pretend it's just a he said, she said. I guess, everybody can make their own conclusions. Baloney. What do you make of it?
Well, first off, why are we taking China's word for anything ever? That's the jumping off point. What would we listen to China for? Who lies more than China? Who steals more technology than China? So who are we dealing with? We're not dealing with Denmark or Sweden. We're dealing with China. So first off, anything they say, I assume is a lie. Number one. Number two, I have a hypothetical for CNN. Let's just say this lab existed in Waco, Texas. The same lab was in Waco, Texas, and this same coronavirus escaped from this lab. And then the lab said it came from an armadillo. Would CNN buy that? My question. Obviously, no, they wouldn't. They would never stop saying this was from the lab in Waco, Texas. So the bizarre part about this whole thing is the news outlets. It's not really China. China's just doing what China does. It's The View, it's CNN, it's LA Times, New York Times. How are they so sure of something that nobody knew? Like, why were they not agnostic?
I'll tell you. I have an answer to that. His name is Dr. Fauci. And he had some partners in crime like Dr. Francis Collins, head of the NIH. And these lemmings in the mainstream media were spoon-fed their absurd, biased, and partisan-driven narrative and went with it without question. I'll just give you this. I love Morning Wire on the Daily Wire. Listen to it today. They had a great soundbite from Francis Collins. Here he was in 2020 on the subject of the lab leak. This guy headed up the NIH, Fauci's boss. Here he was, and this is directly responsible for how a lot of the media wound up saying, no way was it a lab leak. Listen.
There have been a lot of those conspiracy theories around. And, it was not a crazy idea when this first burst onto the scene to say, where did this come from? And particularly because there is a virology lab right there in Wuhan, some people wanted to jump to the conclusion there must be a connection there. Well, of course, there's virology labs in other places, too. If you were trying to design a more dangerous coronavirus, you would never have designed this one. So I think one can say with great confidence that in this case, the bioterrorist was nature in its own way, which has been going on for centuries, has viruses that can jump from species and occasionally into us. And that's often where serious trouble starts, whether it's influenza or whether now it's COVID-19.
Conspiracy theories, Adam. And here, just taking you back, I did a talking points memo on this. Debbie will remind me what the date of it was, but we got an in-depth look at the emails between Fauci and Collins, thanks to House Republicans who were then in the minority. And it outlines how Fauci and Collins were talking to the top virologists in the world not long after this broke. And here's a couple. One of the scientists, Sir Jeremy Farrar, sent an email to these guys saying, I think it was a lab leak theory. He relayed the thoughts of 2 more experts, Robert Gary of Tulane, Michael Farzan of the Scripps Research Institute. Robert Gary, they said, he can't think of a plausible natural scenario. Farzan favored lab leak over natural origin 70-30, maybe 60-40. On and on, where they advised Fauci and Collins, it's a lab leak. This is a lab leak. Then they had a little conference call. And suddenly, within 2 days, all those scientists did a complete 180, saying this was clearly not from a lab and it was not manipulated by man. And not only that, it's racist. You're a bigot if you say it came from the Wuhan lab. They got mob bossed out of their legitimately held opinions by Fauci and Collins, in my reporting view. And we now know that Fauci and Collins and these other virologists and scientists were browbeating people in the media and at state and elsewhere in the government, dissuading them from making any mention of the lab leak theory and saying it was both racist and a conspiracy theory and fringe. So you weren't allowed to talk about it. You weren't allowed to even mention it because these two dishonest brokers were running government health. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, the real question is, what is the media doing? I get what Fauci is doing, and I guess it comes down with CNN. It's like they hate Trump more than they love the truth or reporting. I don't know what the media is doing in this situation. I get there's a theme. I get they're on Team Fauci, but isn't this one case where the virus came from, which should be the biggest question on anyone's mind, was completely destroyed by the media? I mean, they screwed it 10 ways to Sunday, and it's the opposite of reporting. I mean, think about what reporting is. It's like rolling up your sleeves, interviewing people, getting to the bottom of things. It's the part that's miraculous about this entire chapter for me is the media. It's not Fauci or China or Biden or any of those things. It's what is the media doing? They're taking the word of people in power and never asking questions. And yes, steering everything back to race, which I know we'll get on to in a few minutes, is sickening. And it has dangerous there are things that come off it that are much more dangerous than we can imagine, such as this case. Because we infused race into a subject that did not need race infused into it at all, we're simply trying to figure out where this virus came from. Because it got race grafted onto it, people got scared to talk about it. And then they essentially lied. And by the way, the bigger question is, what's up with the American public? You don't know that CNN, you don't know what Fauci's up to, you don't NIH, you don't WHO, you don't get what these people are doing. How many swings and misses? How many times can they be wrong before you, the people, sort of wake up and start asking a couple of questions?
Yes, my God. Exactly right. And even back then, because there were many of us who had no agenda whatsoever when it came to COVID, other than what's real. That's all we wanted to know. There were many of us who didn't see it as an opportunity to bring down Trump. We just saw it as a massive virus that was killing a lot of people. We wanted to figure it out, who were asking honest questions and shamed. They're being shamed for just asking honest questions. Dr. Drew, you were one of them. But to Adam's point, can I just give you a flavor of how the media was reacting to the idea that this thing came from a lab? Watch.
Conspiracy that coronavirus was man-made in a lab in Wuhan, China.
There is no reason to believe any of these conspiracy theories that it was leaked from the lab.
Like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
Fringe theory that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, China.
A conspiracy theory about COVID coming from a lab in Wuhan.
Flurry of conspiracy theories.
The idea that this escaped from a lab is pure baloney.
Complete baloney.
Conspiracy theories that it somehow escaped the lab that was in Wuhan. I think that's unlikely.
Matt Taibbi put that together on his Substack. We could go on. I mean, the New York Times COVID reporter, Apurva, I can't remember her last name, Mandavili. She came out explicitly and said, this is racist. It is racist to say that's their COVID reporter. Where's her apology today? Go ahead, Dr. Drew.
I wish we had something like that. But the real comedy, to pile on to what you both have said, is that it's racist to say that Wuhan lab, a high level 3, virology center of international reputation, had an accident. That is racist. But to say that Chinese people are dirty and awful and are exposed to wet markets and bats and are eating bats and pangolins, that is not racist. And
Right.
that is the incredible thing in this for me, is that we take one absolutely racist point of view and call the other racist. It's too much to be believed.
You've heard me talk about Bonner Private Wine Partnership. They have these incredibly rare Malbecs that you have got to try if you love wine. If you enjoy an occasional glass of vino, try these wines from the extreme altitudes of Argentina. The flavor is unlike any other. Blackberry, leather, smoke, and a little dark cherry. And these wines are nearly impossible to get on your own. The producers, deep in the Andes Mountains, make limited quantities. The best part, they have cut out the middleman. You won't deal with a big markup. Today, we have a great offer for you. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get the wine for over 50% off, plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3, and it is a deal that's hard to turn down if you're a wine lover like me. Just visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.